Rowling's report in.
Red 10 standing by.
Red 7 standing by.
Red 3 standing by. Red 6 standing by.
Red 9 standing by.
Red 2 standing by.
Red 11 standing by.
Red 5 standing by.
Lock air spoils in attack position.
It's true. All of it. The Force, the Jedi. It's all true.
All right, let's see what we have here.
A little flyover here. Let's come around, Red 5.
I've got different coordinates than what our comm says.
That can't be.
Got the chatter, pilots. We've got a mission to... What was that?
Red 5, Red 5.
Come around to point 02 and stabilize.
Red 5?
We would be honored if you would join us.
This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com. And good afternoon, good evening, good night, however it is for you on this glorious day. Welcome back to part 2 of our Into the Wardrobe series. And I am DJ, and of course with me is Nicole, or for this series, we go by Diggory or Polly. And Polly, not or Polly. I mean, it'd be kind of silly to, you know, I mean, I'd answer to Polly if someone said, "Hey, Polly," you know, I'd answer, but you know, that's just kind of silly. But yeah, so last week we talked about. Want to fill them in on what we talked about?
Sure, I absolutely can. So last week we talked about how we were introduced into Narnia, into C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. And we also talked about the magician's nephew, which, of course, that's when we realized we are really Polly and Diggory in real time, day, whatever. That's us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys have not seen episode 1 yet, stop what you're doing. Go back, watch that. We'll be here. We'll wait for you. Mm-hmm. And then pick us up where we are now. This week, we are going to talk about The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Mm-hmm. In 2 phases. We're going to talk about the book and the movie. And then we're going to talk about The Horse and His Boy. So, yeah, man, it was a lot of fun reading these. I've seen the movie a lot more recently than I've read the book. And it's been a long time since I've read Horse and His Boy. So I'm glad to go back over this again. So, yeah, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Oh, man, where to start with this one? This is...
Well, I will say first, I think that we all know this is probably everybody's favorite of the series. Obviously, it's the one that gets the most attention. It's the one that's been adapted the most, you know, had a cartoon done. You know, we're all like, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I think it's because it has like some really good core beliefs that it attracts everybody. And we just want to watch. And it's so, you know, when I think of Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, you know, I have 2 words for it. It's magical and it's enchanting. You know, you want to be there. And even in the snow, you want to be there. I'm currently on like Hoth outside, and I would rather be in Narnia snow than Hoth. Did I say that? Yes, I did. I'm sorry if I offend any Star Wars fans that are watching, but it's true because Narnia is beautiful and it's breathtaking, and I just kind of like to go hang out with the beavers if I can't go hang out with Ewoks on Endor. So,
Right?
there you have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of that has to do with the original order that it was released. We talked about the release order last week,
Yep.
and how it changed. Back when I got into it, it was book number one, and for a lot of people, that's how it starts. And they might not,
Right.
they'll read it and like, oh, okay, well, we'll read the second book, and then as series progress, people say, maybe when I have time, I'll read the others. So it's normally most people will start off 100% with the first book, and then it goes down to 75, and then 60, 50, and
Right.
so forth throughout the series. But yeah, it is. I would say that it is the most recognized, thanks in part, I think, to the movie as well. A lot of people have seen that now that it's on Disney Plus. So it has a even wider range of audience, but it did fairly well in the box office.
It did.
So the setting for Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, it's just a little bit past the one from Magician's Nephew, which was around 1900. And the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe takes place around World War II. In fact, the opening scene is kind of related to in the book and shown in the movie of the Blitz on London. And the kids have to go stay with a foster parent, as it were, which is how they get into the land of Narnia.
Yep. Through the wardrobe. If you remember from The Magician's Nephew, for those who watch the video, it is actually Professor Diggory's house that they go to stay in, who, of course, already knows about Narnia and, remembers those rings and things. Oh,
yeah. Absolutely. And it was, and I know you haven't seen this yet. I do have it completed as far as our intro video, but our intro video shows the wardrobe as the as a sheet goes off of it with the music that's playing, and I believe I'm not sure if we talked about what happened to the rings in the last one, but
trying to leave that for everyone to go and read the book. I think that's why we didn't.
Right. All right.
Read
So the rings that we talked about, and Diggory's assignment while he was in the newborn Narnia, that was just waking up, have a key role in where the wardrobe came from.
Correct.
And why it takes people to Narnia.
Correct. We did talk about that a little bit, about the wood and stuff. Yep.
Yes.
It's so exciting. So exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And I remember when I read the book that the first thing I did, because we had a big wardrobe in the house, and it's me as an 8-year-old, runs over to the wardrobe, throws it open, throws everything out, and tries to see if there's anything on the other side of it. And of course, I wasn't so lucky, but man, I wish it was. That would have been awesome.
I know for me, even to this day though, so we don't really have wardrobes per se. But for me, it's doors. Like, ooh, you know what I mean? If I'm in a store, I'm like, there's just a door standing there, and I go, it could be, I remember one time I was at church and they had decorated, and there was actually a place high up, and they actually placed a door and had done the lampposts and stuff. And I remember I looked and I knew the lady who had done the display and everything. And I'm like, that is Narnia. That is what she is pointing at. And I literally went and asked her. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's the door to Narnia. And she's like, I can confirm. And I'm like, yes, I knew it. Just because, the lamppost, which we're about to talk about, and of course, the door, there's such a significance. And I guess it makes you wonder if that's just like our way that we just want to escape the realities of our own world. And we just really want to go into Narnia because there's like a safety into it. There's something about being with Aslan, being with the beavers, being with Mr. Tumnus. I mean, shoot, I think it would be really hard to decide, do I want to have tea with Tumnus or tea with the Mad Hatter at this point? Because they're both two amazing characters, and one that mad and bonkers, but that's why I love him. And the other one that, he was just Mr. Tumnus. Tumnus is Tumnus, and yeah. That's actually really good. I might have to put that up as a poll. Who would you rather have, Mr. Tumnus or the Mad Hatter? Although I'm pretty sure I know where that one's gonna go, but that's actually a pretty good question. I think I will put up that poll. I think I'll put up the poll when this video goes up that week. So
awesome. And then we'll on the next one we'll see we'll get into what the poll said and we'll go from there.
Absolutely, that's a good one. Good thinking.
Right.
All right, so back to the book, Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Yes. So, whereas Magician's Nephew had two main characters throughout the book, we had a lot of side characters that were in there, but this one centers around four main characters. So we're doubling up here. And as I stated, kids had to go somewhere to escape the bombing of London. And this is actually a true story that people in the countryside would foster children at that time period to get them out because their dad was off fighting the war. The mom was normally working in a factory or whatever. So, and then with the bombs dropping, just to keep the children safe, they moved a lot of them out to the country. So we had Lucy and Edmund and
Susan.
Yeah, and
Peter. Two sons.
Peter.
Yep. Two kings, two queens of Narnia.
Yes. Now
Sons and daughters of Adam and Eve.
Right. I was going to say in the book they are given a specific designation, and that has to do with a lot of things that happen in the book. Some prophecies that are in there. As we talk about it, and you're like, well, why are you guys referring them to, as that? Oh, that's the reason why. There are some details in there, and we really want you guys to go read the book. We don't want to give too much away here, just enough to, wet the whistle a little bit and to get you into it to really figure it out. So, they try
this insight real quick. I'm gonna
Sure, go ahead.
So the Pensieves, Peter Pensieve, King Peter the Magnificent, the High King, Susan, Queen Susan the Gentle, Edmund Pensieve is the King Edmund the Just, which is really interesting when you get into his story. Lucy Pensieve, of course, is Queen Lucy the Valiant. She's also the four Pensieve. So that's the four Pensieves, brothers and sisters, visited Narnia at which the time of the rule of the White Witch. They remained there for many Narnian years and established the golden age of Narnia, which is really cool. Peter is the oldest, followed by Susan, and then Edmund and Lucy. They are in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian. Edmund and Lucy are also in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Edmund and Lucy and Susan appear in The Horse and His Boy, and Peter, Edmund, and Lucy also appear in The Last Battles. So these characters not only appear in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but they also appear in other books. Now, of course, when we get to the movie, I'll get into that a little in a different way because I have my own little thought to that. But it's really cool when you realize that they're woven in a specific way through the books in comparison to the movies, which again, we will talk about. We'll get there when we get there. So, all right.
Yeah,
So we're talkers. If nobody's realized that, we're talkers, and we love to talk about our books and segues and things.
Absolutely, and but that's a great point in the continuity, if I said that right, of the series. It's not just like hey, this is set in the same world, but you have to get to know all these new characters as you go along, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of authors do that, but we see repeat characters as it goes through, just to keep that timeline solid. And you could read it, as you said last time, in any order, and you're like, oh well, here's I read Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, it mentions these. Then you pick up book 5, and all right, well, here they're mentioned here, or book 3 and they're mentioned here. So it always brings that familiarity to you. So great point.
Yes.
So they're they get to the house, they find the wardrobe. We won't get into too many particulars about how they got into Narnia yet, but they do end up in the world, and they come up against the White Witch, who is Jadis from yes. And we talked about her quite a bit last week. She was actually from another world called Charn, and was brought into modern day London, and then finally into Narnia. And she, man, she's just she's something else.
Doesn't have good intentions.
Not at all, and tries to get an edge by any means necessary, whether it's enslaving people, whether it's promising things like Turkish delight.
Right? Oh dear, Edmund.
Oh man, what I'd give for some Turkish delight right now. But yeah, whatever it takes to keep herself in power, she's going to do.
Yes.
And so we meet a lot of different characters through this movie, and we find out that there's or the book and movie, sorry. I glanced at my notes and it has movie written in big, so that's where where I said movie from. We find out that there is a long battle that's been brewing between the White Witch and Aslan, the lion that we also mentioned last week, who brought Narnia into existence with his song.
Yes.
And so we pick up, once these children enter Narnia, we pick up into this battle, and it's already waging. And people have picked sides, so the sides are drawn, the stakes are set, and we're about to go at it. And it's just a time of magic, and, as you said, enchantment and adventure, suspense, heartbreak. It's all in this book, and it's written so well.
It's written beautifully.
Oh man.
Hats off to C.S. Lewis.
Yes.
I'm going to do a quick quote because I love this part, and it's in the book and the movies, and that is Aslan talking to the White Witch. And he says, "Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written." And it's just like, in the movie, and when that quote happens, you just feel it. I was there. And it's like, oh yeah. Wow, how powerful, how great, how amazing. And that's both book and movie, but it's just so good and says so much about Aslan, who of course is one of my favorite characters. Aslan is obviously there's particular reasons why I love Aslan even more as a believer, but that quote is just amazing. Not to hop too far ahead, but
No, that's
the
fine.
White
Yeah.
Witch that we're talking about right now. I'm like, wait a minute, I got to talk about this because there is something really big there. So
Yeah, it's and we'll get into it, and I'll mention when we get to favorite parts. But it's very closely related to that quote. But yeah, we have this white witch, this crafty adversary, and man, it's just it makes me think when she starts offering, I'll give you whatever you want, just name it. What do you want? And if I was to be faced with that, I'm in a strange land, and and some lady who looks regal, she's got the look, she's got this air of magic about her, and she's like, hey, what do you want? I'll give it to you. And I'm like, ooh, man.
kind of like that bell ringing last week.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
whoa. Right? Are you going to ring that bell? Are you going to take the temptation? Is this
Ring a
worth
ding ding.
bell? Oh, that's what Edmund did. Totally rang that bell. And
Absolutely.
Just didn't weigh those consequences. He just, and of course that's true to life. And I think that's also what, C.S. Lewis is also trying to convey to us is that you've got to, before you ring that bell, you've got to really consider, you got to weigh it all out, pros and cons, actions and consequences. And,
right.
Is it really worth the risk? And if you really truly have that gut feeling of this is evil, is it really worth it?
Yeah. Well, the movie really
too into real life now. Like that's the other thing about this book is that this book really does capture what we are here and now to this day. This book is very relevant because there's so many lessons in there that just like that one right there. Like,
you
take it. Are you going to talk to a stranger, by the way?
I have no.
Although I guess that's.
Yeah, I have no trouble talking to anybody. I was in retail sales for I don't know 20 something years, so it was my job to talk to strangers and to get relatable, and so I really I don't have any trouble with that part. But I even think. I think that the movie does a better job explaining Edmund and why he's doing the things that he does better than the book.
Okay. Good perspective. I mean, he is done very well in the movie. So
yes, yeah, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So, but yeah, so as far as other characters that we meet a very friendly person. Person. Was he?
Fawn.
Fawn. Yes,
Fawn.
I was thinking satire for
having tea with.
yes. So the incorrigible Mr. Tumnus, and of course, as you said, the beavers are a big part of it. There's so many other side characters that are in there as well, whether it's the dwarves, whether
makes a difference.
Yeah. I mean, so many things. One of the cool things that I found, in this, in the book, and even shown in the movie is Father Christmas. And they explain it that Narnia is, in a perpetual winter because of the White Witch and the spells and stuff that she has placed upon the land, which just goes to show how powerful she actually is.
Mhm.
And then we actually get to see the effects of when the tide starts to swing. Several times the tide swings in this, and it's really cool to go on this adventure and have all these ups and downs in the book. And as you said, the way that C.S. Lewis writes it, it's so well done. It
Mhm.
At every page you feel like you're in the book,
Oh,
like a never-ending story type of thing
you're
where
transported into
yeah,
Narnia, like literally. Here, there's your wardrobe right there, right in those pages.
oh yeah,
Into it.
yeah. So it's oh man, it's just like I said, it's really hard to, and I'm trying not to get into too many spoilers of the book. Um, but it's pretty it's pretty cool that um, I think the time frame issue, uh, and I think we might have talked about this last week. I don't think it was as big of an issue uh, in Magician's Nephew, but this one, you could go weeks at a time in Narnia and then go back through, and then it's like no time has passed.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Crazy, right?
that is actually that's one of my favorite aspects of it. Man, if I could just be transported and then go back whenever I want,
Right? Time's
and
gone.
spend
Huh?
yeah
Maybe
yeah
5 minutes.
oh yeah whatever, 30 minutes is like 300 years, and it's yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I
Minutes.
actually I think I
Which we'll
had
talk,
it.
which we will also talk about a little bit when we get to the horse and the boy,
Yeah,
because that really shows us that the time that you can really be over there, and yet
yeah,
you come back to this land and it's only been like 5 minutes, and there it's been forever. So
right.
kind of cool. Kind of cool that he dabbles into time like that in a very cool way.
hmm so yeah, for the book, they after the big climactic ending, uh,
Yeah.
we get the children able to go back to modern times, um, and where they have a few things waiting for them there. Uh,
After they actually stay in Narnia for a while through
yes,
adulthood, Narnia
yes,
times, they were adults. And then they went back and they were children again. Again, we're talking about the time still. And again, we're talking about it again when we talk about Horse and the Boy. It has the fact that they stayed in Narnia for a very long time through their adulthood and then transport back. And they are the same ages.
how
Wow,
trippy
that
would
is
that be?
amazing.
Oh, it's like it's picture like Edmund,
Tracy, Diggory, I know, Diggory. We just gotta go find those rings again, and we gotta go back
uh,
for five
I,
minutes.
I might know where they are. I might have to go dig them up or something. But Edmund, he goes in. He's a young boy, that grows up in Narnia, you know, uh, becomes a king, lives many years in there, has to shave, all that kind of stuff. Comes back through and he's a kid again. It's like, oh man, I already went through it. Now you got to go through it again. Oh, I don't know. It might be worth it, but might not be. I don't know.
I
Um,
don't know. Narnia seems worth it to me. Narnia is
yeah,
worth it. Those like,
yeah.
yeah, I'll go. I'll go.
But yeah, yeah, and then of course, at the end of the book, they tell us, hey, that's stay tuned, folks. This isn't,
Far from
they're
over.
they're yeah, there could be more stories to come. Not that C.S. Lewis had any intention of writing it, but he left it open
Yep.
if need be. Um,
7 books came out of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
It's pretty
6
crazy.
more books came out of that moment.
So, I mean, do you have anything else to add about the book?
I want to add a few more details. I want to add a few more quotes and things, maybe talk about some of our favorites. And then I've got 2 fandom crossovers I want to throw out to you. So,
All right.
some of my favorite quotes. You doubt your value. Don't run from who you are. Aslan. Like, just I don't know. It's like I think I need to like post that like on my mirror, like every day. Don't doubt your value. How many times do we all need to hear that? Don't doubt who you are, don't run from who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Right here.
All the
Right here.
time.
Colin Diggory are fully admitting we need these on like we need I almost maybe that's a future tattoo. I also like and I think actually you just said this. And so for a time it looked as if all the adventures were to end, but that was not to be, which is what you just said, which I love that one.
Yeah.
And that yes. And all the books, well, okay, so far the books have lots of adventure. Although I think the last one probably has some adventure, but it's just different. Versus like The Horse and the Boy, that we will get to was a true hold on to your horses. That's what that was.
Right.
So yeah, did you have any other favorite quotes out of there that you know offhand that you like that are sticking out that you're like, oh yes, because I think sometimes like some of these, like the one I was saying, you don't doubt your value. I think that's just a life quote in general. Like, thank you, C.S. Lewis. Like, I need that like daily. I need to
Yeah.
remind you're special, and of course that theme is that God's trying to tell us, hey, you are special, you are loved, and you are valued. Don't run from who you are. You can learn from who you are, but don't run from who you are.
Yeah. One of mine is, where she's Edmund and the White Witch are talking, and he said, at last the Turkish delight was all finished, and Edmund was looking very hard at the empty box and wishing that she would ask him whether he would like some more. And probably the queen knew quite well what he was thinking, for she knew, though Edmund did not, that this was enchanted Turkish delight, and anyone who once tasted it would want more of it, and would even, if they were allowed, go on eating it. And yeah, it's just that temptation, and once you get into it, and it's like that's the center of your life. That's everything else has lost any sort of meaning except for what you just had. And like ringing the bell, once that box is opened and you start getting into it, it's so hard to get away from it. Sometimes it's impossible, and not everyone can. It's just so powerful there. Um,
But we also
and
see that in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, though, that he does redeem himself. Edmund does redeem. This book is really big on redemption. And of course, we also see Aslan, who he didn't even have to redeem himself, but of course he took his life for our life. And then of course rose again, which I love. Oh my gosh, that scene both in the book and the movie is just, or even in the 1979 cartoon, I was like, ah, you know what I mean? I remember going, oh my gosh, that scene, made me bawl and cry. And then, well, wait, it's like Friday. It happened. Well, wait until Sunday, because then he, rises again. And that moment is just amazing. I have to say, I'm sorry, I totally skipped ahead to like favorite moments, but that is one of my favorite moments in the Chronicles of Narnia. Beyond the tea with the Tumnuses, or being with the Beavers, seeing Father Christmas. No, my favorite is literally, it's the sad part of when of when Aslan gives his life.
Yeah.
And it is the following time when he rises again and he's like, ha, nice try, I'm here. Because it sounds so simple, right? But it's not so simple. And I love that we see that through the, of course, in the movies, we can see it through Lucy and Susan's eyes. And it's just like, oh, could you imagine have been there? And
Yeah.
it's so powerful and so like, and then he rises again. It's just like, well, wait, there's more,
Well, yeah,
sorry, I totally skipped ahead. What is one of your favorite parts in both the book and the movie? Or I don't know if you have a either or, but just in general.
Well, it's the same one. It's the stone table scene,
Stone
and
table.
and that's actually my last quote that I have as well. And Susan says, "But what does it all mean?" And Aslan, who's now come back, says, "It means that though the witch knew of the deep magic, there is a magic deeper still which she did not know. Her knowledge goes back only to the dawn of time. But if she could have looked a little further back into the stillness and the darkness before time dawned, she would have read there a different incantation. She would have known that a willing victim who had committed no treachery was killed in a traitor's stead, the table would crack, and death itself would start working backward. And now." And that's, it's such a powerful moment.
I think that's my favorite book and movie. Like, I know we haven't fully gotten into the movie yet, but I will say that right now. I think in both book and movie, that's just my favorite. Right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's it reminds me of the quote that there's always someone smarter.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how much you think that you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's always somebody that's going to know more. And when you let your knowledge rule and you become smug about it and like, hey, I'm really smart, I can, this, that, and the other thing, and I can put people in their place, and well, there's always somebody that's going to know a little bit more about something than you do. And it's a slippery slope once you start down that path. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's what I have for the book.
All right. I want to add two more things. I actually want to add two fandom crossovers. Two.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So I have in front of me J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Okay.
Ooh.
And in this book, you might know, of course, it's also in the movie. There is a chapter called, I'm going to pull it up so you guys can see it. I thought I had the bookmark fell out. I'm sorry, you guys. You guys are watching me as I'm trying to open it. I had a bookmark in it called The Pensive. That is right. The same name that Lucy, Peter, and Edmund and Susan have is actually The Pensive in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
There's more. There's more. This one's a Star Wars crossover.
Uh-oh.
We have a Star Wars crossover. Thank you, Claudia Gray and Leia, Princess of Alderaan. Okay, and I'm just gonna read it because I think this is pretty cool. It's just at the end. And I'm pretty sure she had to have taken this from C.S. Lewis, inspired by it, of course. So after months of strengthening her arms and back through pathfinding, Leia found the ridden, I can't pronounce it properly, sword didn't feel so heavy anymore. Holding it aloft, she waited for the next fanfare. And doesn't that sword sound familiar? The ridden sword is actually Prince. It is actually Prince. Hear me. Prince, that's the next book's King Peter's sword. So very interesting that we have two authors decades later inspired by C.S. Lewis right here, J.K. Rowling and Claudia Gray. Very cool that those are in there. Two really cool crossovers. I had to share.
See,
I had to.
that's awesome. 'Cause I knew one. I knew the Harry Potter one.
Yep.
But the Leia one, I had not.
And
I didn't even think about that.
yeah, well, because when I read it, I was like, wait, hold up. You should see me. When I was reading it the first time, I was like, I know this sword. Where do I know this sword? And I look it up, and it's even in fandoms. Like, you look it up online, and there's a confirmation that they are connected. I'm like, okay, Claudia Gray, good job taking that little, inspiration from C.S. Lewis. And myself, I'd want to use that sword too. Thank you very much. So
Right?
why not?
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So the movie.
Yes, the movie from 2005. So real quick, I want to real quick do a little rundown here. So 1979 was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe cartoon I talked about last week. It's how I was introduced to it. I have yet to see the 1988 BBC series. To be honest, I have not seen it, so we won't be comparing it. Hopefully they'll get a remake later. We'll talk about that probably at the end of the series. The movie, of course, we're going to talk about today came out December 13th, 2005. And that is, of course, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, done from Disney. And the music composer, because they do have a beautiful soundtrack, was Harry Gregson Williams. So I just want to bring that up as well. So
Yes.
Cool fun facts as we talk a little bit about the movie. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Although we've talked a little.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to when there's so much alike, and
Right.
This
is one movie where I felt it's the most alike to the book, which is a good thing. When the character appearance is the minor thing, it's nice to finally have that, because it's very rare that we get closer to the book than and they're both great. They're both done well. And again, there's so much beauty in the book, and there's so much, it's when you watch Disney's, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it is just beautiful. It's captivating. I just want to go on the sands of Narnia once, of course, that's at the end of the movie. Once the winter is gone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and I watched it again the other day. Anytime that I kind of alternate between like Harry Potter and Star Wars and the Narnia movies, mainly because of the score, and I can have it on in the background while I'm working, and just have that great music that's there. So yeah, I was. I was very taken with the movie. One of the things that they hint at in the book, but really show, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, was the Blitz from Nazi Germany over London as they were pelting the city with bombs, and we see Edmund, who really misses his dad, who's it looks like he was a pilot, and according to the pictures, goes in, and bombs are dropping, and he has to save this picture, and of course he gets admonished greatly by his mother and Peter, and for it, and that really set the tone of who this character is, and he's in the middle, and he's not grown, but he's not a child, and he's has this brother that is kind of down on him, and he just has all this stacked against him, and so I can understand why he would make some of the decisions that he has. but I thought that was cool. The um, it was filmed in New Zealand,
Nice.
which if
Sounds
you
familiar. Another
yeah,
movie.
there's another movie that bears a striking resemblance to some of the aspects of of this movie, and
I have a feeling
that's
these authors were friends.
yes, yeah. The Lord of the Rings movies were filmed in and around the same location. Not only that, the same company that did the special effects, like the practical effects for
Mm-hmm.
Lord of the Rings, also did the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Uh, so, yeah, they're multi award winning effects company, and yeah, they did such a great job with that. Um, and something that we didn't mention before that was the lamppost.
Yes. Oh, I mentioned it a little bit, but
Yeah,
not much.
yeah,
Lamppost is so symbolic. You see winter and you see a lamppost, I instantly go, Narnia. Like it's like the
oh
doors, it's like the wardrobes. I see it, I think Narnia, you know.
yeah, oh absolutely. She or when they go through and they show the close up of the lamppost. And it's not like it's an electric light lamppost because this lamp has been there for a long time. It just has like this eternal flame that's in there.
Which is
It
connected to the magician's nephew. So
yes,
good reading, good reason to read both of those.
yes,
There
yeah,
reads into this lamppost, and it's a really good one. And of course, it's where we see Mr. Tumnus and Lucy, and I think that is an amazing scene, both in the cartoon and in the movie.
hmm
That moment is so symbolic, and there's just something about it. It's so, while we know that sadly Mr. Tumnus has got some other issues that we're about to find out like a few minutes later, but like that, there's just an innocence to that moment,
hmm
and again, beautiful, breathtaking, and there's so many words to explain that beautiful moment. And we can see this, we can feel it. In fact, I feel like
hmm
you can feel that friendship just forming. I really want to like talk to the actress and actor and be like, did you guys like, is that when your guys' friendship? Because that just like you can feel that's when that friendship is formed, and it's just such a
yeah,
beautiful moment. Um, I mean, talk about friendship at first sight. That's what that was right there. That,
right,
like, even a few minutes later when we know Tumnus, you know, slightly betrays, but Lucy understands. It's like she already understood his heart was in a good place, even if he wasn't 100% in a good place because of a particular white witch named
hmm
once upon Jadis. So
So the casting for this movie was very well done. We
yes,
had Georgie Henley played Lucy.
you see,
We had Skander Keynes, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, played Edmund. We had Anna Popwell did Susan, and William Moseley did Peter.
yes.
And I remember when I saw uh, Lucy in the film, my first thought was she reminded me of, and I can't think of Miracle on 34th Street, the little girl
Also,
that's
Natalie
in
Wood.
there.
Wait, the original one with Natalie Wood?
But
The
either
original?
one,
Okay.
they did they had two, and both of them were very well done. Just had that that look of innocence, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just especially with all the coats and the hat and everything, all just adorable little girl, and uh, did very well expressing that, and I believe this was her first film to do, and so to be able to capture that was amazing. Um, uh, James McAvoy did
Yes.
Mr. Tumnus. Yes.
Yeah.
So yes,
Tumnus.
yes, Professor X to cross over another series. You know, played Mr. Tumnus. Except for this one, he had a lot more hair. You know,
Yes. And some boots.
yes, yes. And then if you guys ever get a chance to check out the behind the scenes on how they did that, very well done. I watched it again this week. That was pretty cool. As for Aslan, I mean, you're not really going to cast an actual lion in this thing, so it was, it was a computer generated character, but the voice, it belongs to one Liam Neeson, Qui-Gon Jinn himself. Yep. So
Star Wars.
I'm telling you, there's so many crossovers between these series. It's just it's pretty cool to see. Yeah, it is. He just has that voice, and it's just resonating, and it's pretty cool. The White Witch was played by Tilda Swinton, and I had my when we were talking before we went live here. I thought she was in another series, but turns out that she's also in the Marvel universe. She plays the Ancient One in Doctor Strange.
Isn't that interesting? She's the Ancient One and she's the White Witch in Narnia.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like I said, the casting on this was just absolutely well done. I couldn't expect it to go any better. You know, there are, there's a few things that, that weren't mentioned or that were in the movie that weren't in the book. Like the frozen river scene, not in the book. But they did such a great job with it that it's very very, very plausible to that it would be in there. And I was like, wow, it wasn't. It just looked so cool. I'm like, oh yeah. And then, wait a minute, was that actually in there? I had to go back and read it just to see, and it wasn't.
In regards to the casting, so and I kind of began talking about this earlier. So I feel like the casting was so good. So as we're going to be exploring soon, we're going to be talking about casting. We're going to be talking about the Voyage, Dawn of the Voyage Shredder. It's like we want those characters to be in all the other movies because they're just so beloved now, and we're so into it, and we're like, you can't do this movie without that character, but right, because we just are so now invested with how good they played these characters, and so that's your first. That I remember even beginning going, oh, but wait, how can they? Where's this person? But when you begin to read the series, you begin to see, like I was explaining earlier, that these characters, their major roles are in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but they become supporting characters in other places in the series, and that's okay. And that's another thing we have to talk about, is that it's okay because they all have purpose still. And in fact, even you and I are going to talk about in The Horse and the Boy, we're going to talk about a few of them being in that book as well. And they don't always have to be the major role. They actually take a supporting role in the later books. And it's okay. And actually, in a way, it's actually really good because they really do. They give that little punch, or it's kind of like really awesome. It's like when you're watching like a Marvel movie, right? And then all of a sudden you see the cameo, right, of favorite beloved character, or at the end of The Mandalorian, and we saw Luke Skywalker. I think that's really what these characters were. I think they were way ahead. I think C.S. Lewis was way ahead of his time, and he was putting these characters in as special characters later on, even if they were once major characters, because he loved them, and then we loved them. And I think that was really hard for me, is that I had to pull that apart and go, okay, I know they're not going to all be in that one movie now, but because there's a purpose, and we have to be okay with that purpose, because if not, you really do lose out on so much more greatness that C.S. Lewis did develop, and I feel like so far, again, everyone does Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and maybe they'll dabble in one or two, but they drop off, and we miss out on that, all those lessons and things like that. And I just want to talk about that for a minute, because I remember the first time going, wait, wait, they don't have as much time in that next movie, shouldn't they? And then you begin to read and you're like, oh, okay, I understand. Or even, it's been a long time since I've read The Horse and the Boy, and we'll get into that, but I remember going, oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense now. And maybe as an adult, it makes more sense to me now, but it's true, so when you're reading these books, kind of keep an open heart and open mind that these major characters that we do love, and we love them in the movies, they become minor no, they're not minor, that's the wrong word, they're supporting characters, they're beloved supporting characters coming back as a cameo, and they are there to continue on those great stories. And I think he uses them as the thread that holds the quilt together, although the major thread is Aslan all the way through and through. So and do you have any thoughts on that, like in comparison to the books and the movies with the characters and how that lines up? Have you ever had that thought too, like, I want them in them all, and then you go, oh wait, hold up. They're not.
Well, I did have very similar thoughts, but the way that time works, and once I realized that, even as a kid, that that they're not always going to be able to go back, and in a future book we'll get into that a little bit on what happens when when and if they go back after they've been away for a while. But yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, I will say, if you don't like reading books, check out the movie.
Yeah.
Once you get into the movie, go back and give the book another try. It'll be a little bit familiar. You'll be able to get through the books a little bit faster. Even if you start with, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe after seeing the movie, then go to Magician's Nephew, kind of get a little prequel action going, and then continue on with the books, because there's not every movie didn't get, or every book didn't get a movie. So, but true. It's a good way to get into it. But speaking of next books, so that covers the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, the movie and the book, and that leads us to Horse and His Boy, which is now, I guess, book 3 in the reading order.
It was originally 5th published, but it's actually 3rd in the reading order when everything got kind of ironed out.
Yes, yeah. So we'll take the lead on this one. Horse and His Boy, it's your show. What you got?
Okay, well, you know what? I have 2 major words for this book: adventurous tale. Those are my 2 words. If you had 2 words to summarize this book, what would it be? Mine's
shocking adventure.
Shocking. See, and we both have the word adventure. This book is full of adventure. I was like what? And it is very different from The Magician's Nephew and very different from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe have lots of adventure too, but it's just different.
Yes.
And they deal with things that we don't normally, you wouldn't normally, I don't know, you wouldn't find maybe in Magician's Nephew or things like that. So they definitely touch on some very important subjects. The characters are also, there are, well, technically 4 major characters, technically. Actually, I'm going to read them off because I think that is the best way. So, we'll start with Shasta. Shasta there is a mystery about this adopted son of a Chloriman fisherman. He is not what he seems as he discovers himself in The Horse and His Boy. So this is really a coming of age book in regards to them. And they're definitely dealing with some major adult issues for what I would consider young children. There is Bree. Bree is actually the great war horse. You will need to edit war horse. He was kidnapped as a fowl from the forest of Narnia and sold as a slave horse, and in Kalaman. And anyway, so he's actually the one who helps to get Shasta out of his bad situation. Long story short, there's Aravis. She is a Tarkina. I hope I said that right. But even so, she has many good points. Okay, even though she's a little edgy. Okay, modern day speak, edgy, because she does have like a little bit of edge to her. I'm hoping I say this right, so please forgive me if I'm not. It's either Halwyn or Haywyn, and that is actually her horse, who is a sensible horse. That horse was also stolen and was actually a slave from Narnia. So we actually have 4 main characters. However, we do have a few of our Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe characters show up, which include, we know that Susan comes into play, as well as Edmund. Peter is also mentioned in the book of The Horse and His Boy. So it's interesting because we were talking about time earlier with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and this book is set during the time that the 2 daughters of Eve and 2 kings. Give me a minute. Let me try that again. 2 daughters of Eve, 2 sons of Adam are still reigning in Narnia. So that means that this book actually takes place before they go back into the wardrobe, which is really cool. So, and I'm going to say now they're a little bit older. That's how they describe them. They're a little bit older. In fact, even we're going to be talking about Susan and Arvis both actually have the same common problem in the book, which is actually quite interesting. And this book really does touch on some very serious subjects. Although I think even the other books have some serious subjects too, but they're just different in aspect. So anyways, going back, anything you can fill in yet that you're like, wait, you're missing something there?
Oh no, you're doing great so far.
Awesome.
But yeah, we do have some characters that make an appearance, and I never really thought of the point that hey, they're still in Narnia at this time. They haven't gone back.
They have not gone. This is during the golden era of Narnia. Things are good. In fact, actually in the book they talk about Narnia, and it's up north. It's where you go up north. Go north. In fact, that's where Shasta and Arvis, through their adventures, they eventually meet. And Shasta actually was kidnapped. He was slaved. And I mean, different than Erebus, she was a princess and stuff, but she wanted out even. So, and of course, the horse Bree is actually who saves Shasta ultimately. I will suggest please read it because there's so many more details into that. But Bree is a very loyal horse and really shows us like love in a new way. Because he won't let something happen to this boy. Like he'd rather abandon the person who kidnapped him to save his life. And yes, it's a talking horse. Which is really cool because in Narnia the animals can speak. And it really is a really good story. I do want to actually touch on a couple of big things. You and I had discussed, do we want to go there? Do we want to go there? I actually am going to read an excerpt actually while I have the book still out. And it is actually about Erebus. And this is actually a really, really sad part of the book, but it's the beginning of the book. And I feel like Erebus really does have some redemption in her story. I think she really does come of her own, although this is technically Shasta's story. But there is something really big here. In the beginning, it's actually at the gates of Tashbaan. That's the chapter I'm in. She's telling her story about how she left and why she left. And that is that her dad and her stepmom wanted to marry her off. Okay, she's a young girl. They wanted to marry her off to a man in his 60s. Now, our day and age, no, that's not happening. Okay, you got to remember though, this is a different time. This is a different place. This is a whole different era and ball game. And she was young, and they wanted to marry her off to a very older man, and she did not want this at all. To the point that she actually considered killing herself, committing suicide, which is absolutely heartbreaking. But it is her horse that actually steps in and goes, "Hold up, mistress." So that's what I want to read here, because I think this is so powerful. "Oh, my mistress, do not by any means destroy yourself, for if you live, you may yet have good fortune, but all the dead are dead alike." Holy mackerel. A horse, and not of a horse of a different color, that's a whole different world, says, "Oh, my mistress, do not by any means destroy yourself, for if you live, you may yet have good fortune, but all the dead are dead alike." I'll be honest, when I got to that part, I actually had to do this. Bookmark, sit down, process, think. Oh my gosh, because I was already on the edge going, no, Arvis, no, we don't want you to, and of course we already know that she's obviously still alive because she's telling the story to Bree and to Shasta, but it really made me go, wow, C.S. Lewis, he went there. We're not even in modern day, we're not in modern times. And that is how this book is still relevant, because, mental health, is so important. And, taking care of ourselves is so important. Loving ourselves is so important. And the fact that C.S. Lewis attacked this in what was considered a child's book at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a mind-blowing moment for me, because I was just like, whoa. And this was already after the fact that, we had already seen, we'd already talked about slavery a little bit in this book, and the fact that there was a boy that was slaved and kidnapped and things like that. And so C.S. Lewis also deals with that in this book. He deals with slavery, and he deals with suicide, and he talks about these what we would consider very adult subjects,
yes,
on a child's level. And I'm just like, whoa, wow. Yes. And again, it's been a very, 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 very long time since I read A Horse War. In fact, I may not even finished it the first time around, because again, it is one of those books that's, it looks short, but it's very meaty, and it's very filled with adventure and filled with some deep topics that is so hard for us, even as adults, to deal with and to comprehend, and and yet C.S. Lewis went there, and I love that he did. I love that, because today, like, I'm like, this book needs to be back into schools. So this book needs to be read because it's so important. I think that wow. Yeah. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? I mean, what were your thoughts when you read that? Because I'm just like, like my mind was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, there's
I'm laughing, but trust me, I was probably welling in near tears when I originally read that. Like, oh my word, he went there. He went there.
a lot of when he wrote the books in the 1940s, the British aristocrats were still around. I mean, they still have a queen and the royal family and things like that. But and I think he was more speaking out to them as well, because a lot of that was common practice. Young girls were married off to secure financial stability for not just the girl but for their family as well, and sometimes it didn't matter how old the guy was. It mattered of what kind of political influence he had, or maybe how much money that he had. In fact, there's still countries today that have arranged marriages and things like that, and um, maybe not the age gap that used to be, but it's still there. Even the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s. The life expectancy wasn't as great as it is now. So marrying age was 13, 14, and and then it was to whoever was in power at the time. So
Right.
I could see that being a speaking off point on hey, let's be mindful of the damage and psychological stuff that goes with that. But there was
Real quick, it was the 50s he wrote the books. I know, I'm sure that's what you meant when you said 40s, but 50s is when he wrote that. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and quick note though, with Aravis, of course, that's how she starts off on her journey. She listens to the horse, to this wise, sensible horse, and she has the courage to leave, eventually meeting up with our main character, Shasta. Because the horse, I mean, it's very clear he's not the same. He's not like who he thought his dad was, but he even knew, like, he's like, something was off all these years anyways. And of course, that's where their adventures begin. But I have to bring this up because Aravis and Queen Susan, have the same problem, but different. Yes. Okay. Same problem, two different perspectives. And that is, they're both trying to be married off. For Aravis, it's her family, her stepmom and her dad who want to marry her off to a 6-year-old man. And for Susan, she's still in Narnia. They're still there and stuff. And somebody has approached, the princess approached her and, wants to marry her. And she realizes this is not good. Endman tells her, this is not good. This is not good. This guy's bad for you. And the differences here are one, they're both actually, one's a queen, one's a princess. Okay. So they're both royalty, but one's being forced while the other one is having the love of her brothers and her sister to say, no, we're not going to do this. No, we're not going to go this route. We know that in this book that Aravis and Shasta grew up in areas that didn't have their freedoms. Unlike Narnia had freedom. Narnia was known for their freedom, so people wanted to go there for those reasons. And I think that's really important to know. And of course, I'm so proud of course, Peter and Edmund and Lucy. You know, they're standing by Susan and going, uh, no, we're not going to have that. And even Tumnus is in this story, and he's like, this is not good. And he's more of a mentoree at this point, a confidant. And it's so interesting because even he's like, and saying good. And of course, by then Shasta's already with him. That's in that point in the book. And it's just a really interesting moment because when I saw that moment, I was just like, interesting in comparison to Erebus, who's being, you know, she had to escape. She had to like leave. She had to go incognito. She had to leave her whole rich life behind. Leave. Unlike them, of course, with Susan, they actually have to figure out a way to get back to Narnia in comparison to them. But at least she had the love of her family and the support that she needed. I can only imagine what Arvis had to feel like. She's young. Like being a teenager is hard enough. I can't imagine being trying to be shoved into marriage and then being told I have to and not having that love and support. Unlike Susan, who's I think probably has a few years on her, but still at least had the love and support of her family. So two similar situations, very different perspectives. And again, C.S. Lewis brought that into The Horse and the Boy. And even though Susan and them are like the minor, okay, not minor, they're in the supporting roles in this book. That is so impactful still. And I think that I expect that's what we're going to see throughout the series is that even when they're in the supporting roles, we're going to get some of these major points. Again, kind of like Magician's Nephew. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so underrated. And I'm like, okay, so The Horse and the Boy is an adventurous tale. It's a hard one to take, but it's worth it. Yeah. Take your time to read it, but it's worth it.
Well,
so, I had to go there. I had to. I have to go there.
The main action sequence for this book is a war.
Right.
And it's the war, and the reason for the war that to me is one of the more adult aspects of this book. And it's also, this book also doesn't really, it involves Narnians, but it's not in Narnia.
Oh, it's not Narnia.
It's in the lands outside of Narnia, and it's mentioned. Archenland is mentioned in several of the books, as far as nearby to Narnia. Narnia being in the north, as you said. But the whole reason for this thing is because the guy that is that wants Susan proposed to someone else previously and was turned down.
Yep.
And so he wants to exact his revenge. And this is, to me, was probably the way that it was described on what they were going to do in the land once it was conquered, and what he was going to do with this. I think she was a princess of Archenland. Elenia of Archenland. It was graphic, and and I don't remember that when I read it a long time ago. And then as I was rereading, and I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And of course that's a vehicle to help our main characters convince, the supporting characters on, hey, this is what's coming. This is what they said they're going to do. Get ready. And but as far as topics, I think this is one of the more adult themed books. I almost wish it was at later in the reading, very similar to like a another crossover Harry Potter type. Harry Potter, when it first starts off, is easy to read. It's easy to get into, and as each book comes, it gets more and more adult, and so you grow with the books. When kids read the first book, and then they're older, and the next one comes out, and it took what 7 years, 8 years for all the books to come out. So when they first read it, say they're 10, now they're 18, and they're reading the stuff that's going on in these books. It's
Right.
yeah, it's hard to put this on kids. I mean, yeah, especially now kids can handle it, but there are a lot of it was shocking the adult themes that are in this book. But like I said, it's very well done and very well written.
Right. But of course, remember, it was also originally the fifth one published. So if you go chronological, the way it was published originally, it's going to be the
Yeah,
fifth one. But that
yeah,
being said, we should also be in awe and shock that had to even be brought up. I mean, because even in modern day, we're talking about slavery in the books, but modern day we're dealing with human trafficking and stuff. So the fact that we're still talking about it, we're
yeah.
still having, yeah, that's a whole different subject, which we won't go into. But it's like, yay, C.S. Lewis, you went there, and we do have to talk to our kids and about it, and it's
Right.
important. It's important. So, oh my. um I want to, of course, make sure I talk about some of the quotes, because I love the quotes, because that's just
Right.
me. um so okay, I have a couple different ones. There's one where Bree's talking to Shasta. Again, Bree is the talking horse, the war horse. He says,
Hmm.
if you can't ride, can you fall? So this is a question. And then he says, I mean, can you fall and get up again without crying? Mounting again and falling again and not being afraid to fall. And I think that there's so much deep lesson in this. So this is the beginning of the book, actually, when this happens. Because they're about to leave. They're about to go towards Narnia, which eventually they do get there. But it's so important because it's also real to life. Can you get back up again? Can you? Will you? Are you going to always cry, or are you going to just get up and do it? It's kind of like get up, shake it off, take off the dirt, right? And get up and do it
Yeah.
again. Do it again and do it again. And of course, for Bree in this situation is that if they're out and about in the middle of the night, Shasta can't just be like, he can't just scream, he
Yeah.
can't cry. He has to get up and he needs to go again, because somebody might be hearing them, or we might see a lion or two, and they're not Aslan all the time. So you have to get up and you have to go. I loved that, because I think that was such a comforting quote. Also, I love this one later, of course. Thank you, Aslan. Again, no one is told any story but their own, and that was in regards to him talking to Shasta, or as we later find out something else about who Shasta really is. He's at that point talking to him about Erebus, and no, you need to focus on your life, not just her story. There's your story. Your story is your own. It is just as important. It's valuable. It's, so many ways you can take that.
Yeah.
Also, one more. I'm sorry, I've got everything written down on paper.
That's fine.
I was quite safe. That is why the lion kept on my left. He was between me and the edge of all time. Yes, and that, of course, is between, again, Shasta and Aslan. Again, so many good quotes, even in this. Again, this book is not huge. I mean, this is
Yeah.
it. It's not huge. And again, there's even some illustrations in there too that takes up some room, and it's just very meaty. It's
Yeah.
a adventurous tale that's very meaty. Oh, and I meant to say this last week. I said I'd look up to find out who the illustrator was, and it's actually Pauline Baines is actually the illustrator for the newer set by Harper Collins books.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But when I looked it up, also, it looks like she was actually also the original illustrator as well in the original set. So if you have the original set, which you are blessed to have, that's who the illustrator is. So I want to make a special note that I did figure that out too. So well, what are some of your other? Do you have any favorite quotes or any favorite parts, favorite characters? Because I'm just like rambling off on all these fun tangents about the horse and the boy and And of course,
No,
I'm emotional, and I see you. You're going all the war side, which is kind of cool. we kind of even it out.
no, it's yeah. I don't think I have any favorite quotes in there. At least nothing that I had to write down. Uh, One of the main things that I really enjoyed was near the end of the book, and Aslan makes an appearance.
Yep.
And we have a character whose name was Rabbit, and he was the one that was spurned by the princess and queen, and was leading the war, and um, so Rabbit and Aslan have a confrontation, and uh, Aslan tells him and warns him, accept the mercy or your doom will be upon you. And what, 3 times I think he tells him, look, come on, it's at hand. You accept the mercy or you're going to regret it. And still, hard-headed as he was, he wouldn't accept the mercy, and his doom came upon him. And I won't say what that is. You have to read it in the book.
Yep.
But it's very iconic what happens to this character. And yeah, that to me is just, because sometimes all we have to do is accept that mercy.
Yeah.
And you accept that mercy and everything will be okay. You accept certain things, and and goodness will follow you throughout the rest of your days. It's so powerful and so impactful, and then to see the actions if you don't,
Yeah.
you could become in this position, which to me is there was a lot of action and a lot of adventure to get to that point. To me, that was the ultimate point of the book, of mercy, of acceptance, of who you are and your value, and when mercy is extended to you, to accept it. That it's not a bad thing.
Yes. Great.
And yeah. So that was my my thing. I liked the book. There, it to me it was one of the faster reads, basically because of all the action that's in there, with the big war. Um, and I almost expected, as you said, Peter was mentioned, but he doesn't make an appearance in the book. I almost expected him to come in, or riding a horse or something at the end, but he didn't, which was pretty cool.
Because he's off to something else important for Narnia. So at this point,
Yes.
he's doing his own thing to help his kingdom. He's of course in full support of his sister.
Yes.
He also trusts her. Of course, and all of our characters actually have a really good ending. Everything it does really come together. I love the fact that he does bring it all together at the end. Something really cool, of course, happens for our main character, Shasta. He finds something really awesome in the long run. Hint, hint. And that's really wonderful that he gets
Yes.
that. I think after you see what they've been through, I think it's good, because we all want that happy ending, right? But I think he at least gets to a good point. And of course he gets back where he's supposed where he's to belong. He's supposed to.
Right.
So,
So I think the last thing that I have to say on The Horse and His Boy is
yes.
that this story is so important. It is told again, not the whole thing, but the story is told again in another book of this series. and we'll get into that once we get to that
there.
book, which is a couple of weeks down the road, I'm sure. This book is so important that it is retold by characters in another book.
Yep. I'm excited because not all. I'll be honest. Not all these books have I read. I've read. It's been a long time since I read this one, and again, I know I didn't finish it originally because I think I got to those very adult meaty parts. I was like, hold on, this is too much, But once I get to Silver Chair in the last battle, that's going to be interesting. And actually, next week we're going to be talking about Prince Caspian. But this time around, I'm also going to be using a reader's guide. So I'll be really digging into Prince Caspian this week because I'm going to use a reader's guide along with it. And I'm excited because I want to see those deeper, maybe some deeper themes that maybe I've been missing. And there's reader guides out there. So anybody can find them, wherever, Amazon, thrift stores if you're thrifting like me and stuff. Readers guides are really good. They kind of get you in a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
So I liked this book. Very meaty, but it's well worth it if you just take the time. For you went quick. Me, I'm like, it took me some time, especially with Arvis at that beginning. I hit that moment. I was like, I need time. I need to process that because that was just so deep to me.
Yeah.
And so a good read. Also a really good read if a family reads it together, I think, because that would probably be a good family read together, or listen to on Audible together, just to kind of, get through some of those deeper conversations and things like that. So,
yeah. Awesome. Yes. So, next week, as you said, Prince Caspian, we'll cover the book and the movie.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
I am. I was so excited when it originally came out, and I remember I was just like, yes! I couldn't wait because, like how I already said, like I already had fallen in love with our beloved characters, all over again. And of course, that's when it becomes hard to take those beloved characters and be like, they're supporting characters in the future books. And yet, right off the bat, then that one, they're the supporting. But again, you do see them just in a different light. So.
Right. Yeah. So man, it was a great time tonight talking about The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe and Horse and His Boy. And stay tuned next week for Prince Caspian. So, any other thoughts before we leave?
Nope. It's been a fun night. Good time talking about Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Horse and His Boy. And I'm definitely excited about Prince Caspian. So can't wait to talk next week.
All right. Yeah. So until next week, this is Diggory.
This is Polly.
And signing off, and you guys have a great night.